Okay, VHF, UHF digital operations. Not sure why this one came first. I thought about switching and putting HF digital first, but doesn't make much difference. We'll talk a little bit more about mesh networks because that's where they usually operate in the VHF, UHF. The WSJTX software suite, which is where most of the weak signal protocols are. JT65 in particular, FT4 and FT8, and also FST4. And there's even a thing in there on Q65, which is a new mode. A little bit about APRS and meteor scatter. So we talked about the mesh networking, even up in the 5 to 10 gigahertz bands, where they use that link establishment protocol to find other stations and make this mesh. It's kind of redundant, so if any station goes down, there's more than likely a path still through it to another station. One of the main uses is this amateur radio emergency data network, or AREDN, or however you pronounce it. And it's primarily there as a emergency network. So I think it's kind of the same as what the SARNet does around here, although SARNet isn't. I think it's a mesh network, but not in the same manner. It's not using routers and internet or other connections in between them.
This is high speed.
What?
Said the previous song said high speed data.
Well, you can send high-speed data on 10 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz.
Sure.
And it's all packets. So what's the primary purpose of the AREDN network? WSJTX was formed by a guy named Joe Taylor, who did a lot of deep space communications. And a lot of the protocols he developed are used in the WSJTX because he was also an amateur. I think I forgot his call sign. It's something like W1JT or one of those 1x2s. In the VHF UHF, probably the most popular one was JT65. It's a little bit different than FT8, FT4, where they're multi-tone frequency shift keying, but either 4 tones or 8 tones. In the case of JT65, it's 65 tones, which is where it got the name. And then probably on the next, oh, it's down here at the bottom. This Q65 is kind of an offshoot of that. It works down as low as 6 meters. It's still VHF, but uh-oh. Am I not plugged in?
You just took our shit. Switch on that over there. Light on. Oh, I had some problems today.
No. There's no light on. I think there's a light.
A lot of times the lights in the same go out.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
I didn't know it's on or off of this thing.
Let's see if the pencil works.
Yeah, so it's not gonna. Oh. This-
Oh, plus,
Maybe it was hot when we needed to reset.
well, the connectors sometimes comes loose.
It's almost like they pop off, it's still similar.
Okay, so, in order to use it for, and it was originally was the main method to do moon bounce or Earth, Moon, Earth communications. Because of the time synchronous transmissions and but you have to somehow set these up if you're going to communicate with somebody on moon bounce. The other station needs to know when and where and how and all that stuff so that you can set it up and it transmits and receives back and forth, kind of like an FT8 transmit receive with the two time slots.
What they call that time synchronization, FT8, FT4,
I believe so.
or the Q65 does the same thing.
Yeah, all of the WSJTX modes are pretty much the same, just variations. The Q65 is the same kind of modulation. It's 65 tones of this Gaussian blah 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 frequency shift keying thing. And I think the biggest difference is it can work down to 6 meters, where the others are 2 meters and up, basically, like JT65.
Is that because of the bandwidth?
I'm not exactly sure, but you can do tropospheric scatter and meteor scatter on Q65, where at 6 meters, where you can't do that on JT65 at.
What's the bottom frequency for JT65?
For which?
JT65.
I believe it only goes down to 2 meters. And then the normal meteor scatter is MSK 144, which is 2 meters. It was optimized for meteor scatter. So they've got one of these protocols for just about everything you want to do. Whisper is another one that's part of the package. That's a typical computer screen that you'd see doing JT65 mode. It's a little bit different than FT8. At least it's rearranged slightly different, but you still have a spectrum display and you still have the stations that it's decoding. So what type of modulation is used for JT65 contacts?
Oh, no.
What's the characteristic of the JT65 mode? You didn't get fooled with the 65 hertz or the,
I'm on top of
okay. Because PSK 31, is 31 hertz.
Where or how is the frequency limit for its use imposed?
Repeat that?
You said there's a frequency limit for the use of JT65. Where or and how is that frequency limit imposed?
It was, I don't know the actual answer, but it was designed to operate basically 2 meters and up. I don't know what the issue is if you try to run it at 6 meters.
Okay,
I
so
can't-
we don't know if there's a hard limit or not.
Correct. It's just that they basically advertise it as 144 and up. So I assume from that. It may work, but may not work as well. Not sure why the frequency would affect it with the protocol, but I don't know. Yeah, but they're all narrow band.
64 or 65 tones, simultaneous tones.
Well, not simultaneous.
Oh,
Each one's a symbol. So,
I could love to hear that.
but it's still in, I think it's still in like 50 hertz or something very low like that. So the difference in frequency in the tones is very small. It's like a hertz or two. I don't know. So which of the following is designed for EME communications? Yeah, this one got me at first because all the stuff talked about JT65 that's one of its big things it was used for was Earth, Moon, Earth. And then they, as an afterthought, came up with Q65, but they don't say that's its primary use.
That's the least of the.
But it's the only one.
Yeah.
Which of the following is a method for establishing Earth, Moon, Earth contacts? Alpha. Other modes, FT4 and FT8. FT8's been the most popular. I guess FT4 is getting more activity because it's faster. And you don't lose that much signal noise ratio effect. I think FT8 is supposed to work down to 24 dB below the noise level or something like that. And 4 is only like 20 or 21, so it's 3 dB. Oh, here, yeah, for these, in a contest with FT8, the grid square is sent in place of the signal report. But I thought the grid square was always sent.
Grid square and.
At least it looks it up. I don't remember if grid square is actually part of the message. Because the program looks up and will usually tell you the station where it's at. And it's grid square.
Yeah. Well. No, you transmit your call sign.
Right.
and His signal strength and your grid square.
Okay. I'll have to go check. Well, I know the grid square pops up in the display. I'm just not sure where it's getting it, if it's part of the message or it's part of a lookup. Because I think it accesses QRZ.
No.
You sure?
Possible.
Okay.
I've operated without communications with the internet.
All right. Well, okay.
Yeah, when you set up your FT4, FT8 or JTX, when you set that up, you put your grid square in and that goes out with your call sign.
Okay. I didn't remember that being a part in the message, but I'll have to look. I went through all that FT8 stuff about a year ago and how it actually generates the thing, and it's quite interesting. They don't use ASCII or anything either. Yeah.
Oh,
It's a lookup table with 36 positions, A through Z and 1 through 10, 1 through 0. And each one of those is a number in the array, and they do each one of those sections that way. And then it's got all kinds of error correcting code and other things. And anyway, what information replaces signal to noise ratio when using FT8 or 4 in a contest? So I guess when you pick contest mode in your setup, it does that automatically,
It
right?
doesn't send a signal.
Huh?
It does not send a signal
Okay. Because contests don't care.
all the time.
APRS, most of it is up in the 2-meter band. It uses the AX.25 protocol, which has been around a long time. It was, I think, the original packet radio protocol. I guess it was probably Motorola. I'm not sure.
Data protocol. Before there was IP.
That's been around for a long
Sure.
And the data is actually sent in unnumbered packet frames. I'm not sure the significance of that exactly, except normally when you're doing packets like on internet in particular, each packet has a number so that you can reassemble them in the proper order, because they may not get there in order, retransmission or whatever. So they have to have, you have to put them together sequentially. I guess this implies that since it's an unnumbered, it's like there's just that packet. There's not another packet
Well, like you.
because there's not that much data that's sent. It's just GPS data and maybe and a little bit of other stuff. In a lot of cases, it's using the GPS information so that you can track vehicles or people. We use it in the Air Force started a 10-mile run up on the Cape, and we use it there. One or two of the runners with a little APRS radio and track them, see where they are in the thing. Plus, the lead vehicle has one, so we can tell where the first runner is and stuff. Let's see, what else? Oh, I guess it can be used for high altitude balloons, although the Pico balloons, to my knowledge, all use whisper.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what high altitude balloons these are. Maybe different high altitude balloons. Maybe it's the weather balloons they send up.
Might be, and they would not be using amateur frequencies.
Well, but it's on, well, that's true. It's on the 2-meter band. I don't know. I do know, I don't know much about it. I guess I'm going to have to learn. We have a digipeater up on top of the VAB now, so it's covering most of the county. A lot of people are using it. I still haven't figured out, because apparently you can do more than just send GPS data. You can actually send messages and stuff through the digipeater.
If it's using that AX.25.
Yeah. But you have to have a radio that supports APRS. Now, Baofeng has a new one out for about $150 that does. It's got all kinds of whiz bang, Bluetooth, and how do APRS stations relay data? What digital protocol is used? Why does packet path? Oh, Did we miss that chart?
Yeah, it's happened multiple.
Or was it stuck on the bottom? Because that's a kind of an oddball thing. It was on a chart. Well, the answer is
What's the question?
3 digipeater hops are requested and there's 1 remaining. Now,
Okay.
apparently you could have a wide 2-2 or other ones, but a 3-1, that's what it indicates. So as far as the exam, that's the only thing you have to remember is wide 3-1 is 3 hops and 1 remaining. Not sure what 1 remaining actually means. If you're limited to a total of 4, I'm assuming.
Where does this message come from? This Y3-1. Where would you see that?
I don't know.
Well, then take it off.
Well, I can't.
Oh.
Because that's an extra question. You'll probably get it. But easy to remember because we don't know what it is. Where it shows up, I don't know. Unless it's something when you are setting up your APRS connection or of how many hops you want to allow. I know that's, as I recall, it's been decades. That was one of the things on internet with routing was how many hops you allow.
Hmm. 16.
What type of packet frame is used to transmit APRS beacon data? What technology is used to track in real time balloons carrying amateur radio transmitters?
Yes, sure.
Charlie.
Not listening.
Meteor scatter. They normally use MSK 144. That is what it was developed for. It's part of the WSJTX suite. I've never figured out actually how you actually do a meteor scatter contact since they typically only last like 30, 40 seconds. So how would you ever arrange and do a contact in that amount of time when you don't know when the meteor's coming?
That's where one of the showers, you know, those kind of be.
Yeah, I guess. But it does use the 15-second transmission sequences like FT8 does and alternate. So I assume that means they're transmitting and receiving like FT8 on 15-second intervals. Yeah, I can't say that I ever totally understood all this stuff because I've never even looked at trying to do a meteor's contact. If you do, that's what the computer screen may look like. Again, it's kind of a rearranged like all the other WSJTX ones. It's kind of the same information in different places. This is MSK 144 for meteor scatter. Have you tried meteor scatter?
No.
Okay, me either.
It's too loud.
Well, you got to be too quick. 30 seconds to, I think the book says up to like 2 minutes. So in that kind of time frame, how do you make a set up and make a contact?
Prepare for it, I guess.
Yeah, you call on the internet, coordinate. Which of the following digital modes is designed for meteor scatter communications?
We're on.
Okay, so we talked about the AREDN network being a mesh network. A lot of the different WSJTX modes, particularly JT65 and Q65, because they're all very low noise signal to ratio. That Q65, they say, was designed specifically for EME. I didn't get that when I read the information on the WSJTX site. It was like the last thing in the list of what they were using it for, but whoever makes up these questions must always be right. And it requires these time synchronous transmissions that alternate back and forth between each station in order to set up and do the moon bounce, unless you're just doing it straight back to you and picking up your own signal. There's also a mode for that called echo, which is just for that, where you bounce it off the moon and pick it back up. And in FT8 contests, you send a grid square instead of a signal report. APRS uses digipeaters.
Signal or noise.
True. It's not a RS. It's a number in dB. But it's not sure what it's referenced to. It's not dBm. It's just a ratio compared to some noise floor. I assume within the 3 kilohertz bandwidth. And we all remember that wide 3-1 means 3 digipeater hops and 1 remaining. It sends unnumbered frames. So I'm assuming from that there's no connection between frames. They're independent. It'd have to be, because there's no way to reassemble them. You can do real-time tracking with APRS on balloons and other things, mobile cars, people. If you look at, I think it's aprs.net or something like that, and you'll actually see a geographical picture of your area, and you can see all the APRS devices around. And if they're moving, actually, you can see cars move and stuff.